you referenced Chairman Fred Hampton a few times in the album. You know what I mean? It's like, Chairman Fred Hampton had the Rainbow Coalition where he united the Black Panther Party with the Puerto Rican Young Lords and the poor white Young Patriots. So when people have this idea that, oh, the Latino struggle has nothing to do with the Black American struggle, you can't in the same breath say I respect the Black Panther Party or I respect Huey P. Newton or I respect Angela Davis, because the Black Panther Party, as exemplified by Chairman 100%. Fred Hampton, was about fucking building solidarity, the coalition. And you put that shit in the bars, even when you had the fuck ice bar. It's like, it's one of the strongest bars on the whole album. And you know what I mean? What were you trying to say? You know what I mean?
That's another thing that I feel like I learned from Aja Monet, from debating her over and over again, because I had a very Black self-identity, even if it expanded out into like this African identity or this global identity of Blackness, I still had like this Black, like solely Black. And I think that
Black supremacist.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I was a fucking Black supremacist. But I also, I understand now that it is all on a spectrum, and there is an intersectionality where Black people have a acute understanding that a lot of people can't get of not just immigrating here, but being a product of theft and having to assimilate when no one wants you to assimilate, but at the same time needs you to assimilate. There's a very specific understanding and identity there, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't reverberate or have versions of it with all the other oppressed peoples out there. And so once I got a better understanding of that, it made me realize like, oh, this music is for everybody. And there's certain songs that I kind of still wish were on there. All My People should have been on there.
All My People is...
I'm putting it on the deluxe. But
All My People is one of your best songs.
It's my greatest song that I wrote, and I just got to figure out the right time.
I really like the first original verse.
There's 7 different original verses. I don't know which one you're even talking about now. I rewrote that shit 50 times. The first one was
so simple, and it was so strong. I mean, the newer one was crazy. I remember when you A and B'd them, I was kind of like, okay, I hear you on the new one. The new one could be better. But something about that first one, like how you say the verse on Cocoa Butter Kisses, you think it's too simple?
Yeah,
I think that original first verse was so simple that I think you're gonna have every member of the crowd singing it.
I gotta revisit. I haven't heard that first verse in so long. I don't remember how it starts.
I'd be trying to fight for that motherfucker but you gotta do a deluxe because there's so many records that like Letters, man. Like you as one of the most Christian
front-facing
niggas of all time, like Christianist niggas, to have a scathing critique of the Black church. I thought that was a real interesting angle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. My grandmother. So I told you this right before I went to link you in Ghana the first time. My grandmother gave me a phone call and she was telling me all the stuff about how they had been to Ghana and who to go visit there, and then my great-grandfather was a Garveyite and all that stuff. And one of the things that she had given me right before I went on the trip was a book called God of the Oppressed by James Cone. And James Cone was, he's the inventor of, he invented this theology called Black Liberation Theology, which interprets the gospel as a gospel of liberation, and tasks the church, makes the definition of coming into God's kingdom. It makes it we have to defeat white supremacy. That is the enemy. That is the sole enemy of the church. That is the devil on earth is white supremacy. And so once I started reading this book, I read God of the Oppressed. I read And the Cross and the Lynching Tree is the one that made me write Letters. It made me challenge the church because we never really get to talk about, and maybe we do talk about it outside of Christian spaces, but within the church, very seldom do you hear a sermon that's about Jesus the disruptor, like how his whole existence was him coming into places and saying, y'all doing everything wrong, walking into the church or to the temple and saying, y'all doing everything wrong, going to, the Pharisees or the people, anybody, even the government, and saying this shit is wrong. That was his whole existence. That's like his whole ministry. And I love with Letters that I got to attack it at every point. It wasn't just from this is the racial disparity. It wasn't just from this is what's wrong in the Black church. It was also like the starting verse is my home church. This is what y'all do wrong. Y'all gossip in this bitch. Y'all don't support or fund any of the programming. Y'all don't do fellowshipping or outreach in the community. We got homeless people, kids that need a church, all these things. And to be honest, like a lot of my peoples was not fucking with that shit. You know what I'm saying? Because they love my church. Like this is how, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
but
you know what Baldwin said though was that precisely because I love America
must critique it.
is why I must critique it. And that's why I thought that choice was an evolved choice, because to really love someone or something is to free yourself to be honest about it. You know what I mean? And to love it through its flaws and seek for its betterment.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's how that song feels to me. And the last place I'm gonna go is No More Old Men. When I moved out of Chicago, like a year and a half ago, it was after we had back-to-back summers of lakeside vigils for Jordan Day, one of our brothers who passed away in a horrifically fucking graphic way, in a fucking gun battle with his blood brother in his mother's house to an AR-15. We letting off balloons. Next summer, Lil Dan's got killed. I mean, that was my little man. And I'm back at Lake Michigan, you know what I mean, for the balloon releasing. And I was just like, I'll never be able to escape this because these are my loved ones in my home, but I cannot be intimately witness to this all the time. You know what I'm saying? And the song No More Old Man, it just feels like it puts that whole dynamic into lyric, you know, to be like, yo, every time I just turned 33, nigga, I feel like a senior citizen in Chicago year. Niggas be like, what's up, OG? Like, big homie, what's up, OG? No, for real, because it's like a lot of our closest friends, man, they stuck at 17. Niggas lost their life at 19. You know what I mean? They'll be 19 forever. You know what I mean? Like, in the song No More Old Men, how do you feel like you captured, and what's the thesis? You know what I'm saying?
The thesis, it comes from a poem that my cousin Nikki wrote that was, I think it's called The Day Where There's No Grandfathers in Chicago. And it's talking about because of gun violence, poor diet, environmental racism, whatever reasons, one day, you know, there won't be any old men to be grandfathers to the babies that are born. And she laments on all these things that she wishes that these kids would get to experience, that you get to experience having a black grandfather in Chicago. And I always thought that poem was so hard, so I wanted to try and do something to that effect. But I think the goal of the song is to paint all of these beautiful experiences that I got, not just from being, because my grandfather's passed, but there are old men, whether they were at the barbershop or the niggas that was friends with my dad. There were older men in my life that played mentorship.
I had uncles all up and down
79. You feel me? Like I thought these was my dad's real brothers. They was not. They was just niggas that lived by my house.
Hood
that was his
niggas,
friends.
bro.
You know what I'm saying? Hood niggas that my dad grew up with. But I am the man that I am by all these different male role models that I had. And we've gotten to a point that, like you was just speaking to, where like a lot of that mentorship isn't around as much anymore. And I'm starting to slowly realize that that's gonna become my role sooner than later. Like, I mean, in certain ways, we already try and pour into the youth, but like, there's just certain things that we know through experience that we have to pass on. And so I think the first verse, I spend a lot of time just talking about those essential things that you learn in the barbershop. Like, I was around Playboy magazines when I was young because they was in the barbershop. I was hearing conversations about, you know, relationships with women, about shootouts, about fights, about all of this shit, learning about
buying
bootleg
CDs,
clothes, buying
bootleg
CDs. You know what I'm saying? All of that shit is happening in this one space of just men, of a room full of a man's man, like a room full of them. I'm going in there with my dad and just hearing these people talk. And a lot of those men passed away. A lot of them for health reasons, you know, not even like violence, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then I think the second verse just talks about how important the relationship was with my father, how I watched certain things that he did. One of my favorite lines in the second verse is they sleep in separate rooms for years, just so somebody's there in case they have a stroke.
Have stroke, and the way you said have stroke.
You know what I'm saying? Like, cause my aunt and my uncle, I used to always question why my uncle's room was in the basement, you know, and my aunt's room was on the top floor. And we all go over, this is like the house where she would cook for 50 people. Like every Sunday, she'd be frying fish, and then my whole family would come and pile into her house. But I was like, why does Uncle Sam live in the basement? And it was because they weren't together anymore, but they wasn't getting no divorce. They were still together. They just didn't sleep together. They weren't romantic with each other, but they had 4 kids. They had a house that was the communal space for our whole family. So they stayed together. And that, you know, I'm not saying that that's the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it, but that's how important keeping this space interlocked was for them. And so that's a lesson that I got from them that I still hold inside my heart. Even if I couldn't try and convince my ex-wife to do it, it's like, that's an understanding I have of the world that I might just have to tell a young man one day. Like, you know, back in the day, whoop the bam, they used to just live together. Like, you don't got to do it this way. But that's knowledge that I have to pass forward to another young man, or needed to say out loud for me to understand or reckon with how my situation went. But I think the idea there is like, for at least from what I was writing, was like, we have a wealth of understanding and survival tactics that have to get passed down through mentorship.
Close it out for me with the, was it the 4, is that the song with the 4 Black Commandments?
Black Commandments.
So the 4 Black Commandments, how they go?
These are 4 Black Commandments. 1, watch your health, that's your wealth. 2, watch your brother, that's yourself. 3, watch your home, that's your door. 4, if they want it, we go to war.